Let me tell you about how much I love SZA. Before SZA, I knew Rihanna, and they had a collab on the song called Consideration. It came out during such a transitional time. Like, I just started high school. I haven't really experienced anything. And then this album comes out. It just puts all of my feelings into words in the best way. Like all other albums, I always heard their singles first, and then it would take other people mentioning the rest of the songs that I'd finally listen to everything else. I just wanted to rank the songs. This is probably gonna be the hardest one, only because they all feel like they would deserve number one. So yeah, like the Mac Ayres vid, this isn't an album review, because we should all know by now that this is legitimately a great album. So instead, I'm just gonna rank the songs, talk about them, how the project made me feel as a whole at the end, and yeah. So I put Pretty Little Birds last. It just feels boring compared to the rest of the music, and every time I came across this song on the album, I always skipped it. Like, I would go from Normal Girl straight to 20-something, and it just has such a different tone compared to the rest of the album. And because of that, I don't think I ever actually listened to the entire song. Like, I never had a chance for it to actually grow on me, because like it feels like a separate project for the soundtrack of some post-apocalyptic TV show, whereas everything else in this album feels like it should be part of coming of age story, talking about her insecurities and stuff. But then this one, like, I didn't really dive into the lyrics that much. It's just the sound threw me off. The thing that I did like about this song was probably SZA's vocals, because she's a lot softer here towards the end of the song, which I do like, but I just can't get through the rest of the song. So after Pretty Little Birds, I'm putting Anything in 13th place. This is another one that, like, it was cute the first few times I heard it, and then after a while I kind of got bored of it really quickly. And I think it's because the writing is simpler compared to the rest, so I didn't really have a lot to relate to, even though it is somewhat relatable. This song is pretty forgettable in my head. Like, I always forget that this song exists, and when I go to re-listen to the album, I forget what it actually sounds like. Like, I don't remember the chorus, I don't really remember any of the verses. The one thing that I do remember, just because it is repetitive, is the outro, like, Do You Even Know I'm Alive? Like, that part, I do remember it. And then maybe, like, the first two lines of the intro. The beginning and the end of the song I really love. But it's different from Pretty Little Birds in the way that Pretty Little Birds, because it's so different, is more memorable. But then Anything kind of feels like Prom. It's a bit more poppy than the rest of the album, but it's just not memorable. Like, it doesn't have anything that really interests me besides maybe that intro and like how bouncy it is. Next up, I decided to put Prom. I feel like production-wise, it doesn't hold up against the rest of the songs on the album. It doesn't have as much variety or as much layers. And that's not to say that, like, they didn't put a lot of work into it, because I know that they did put a lot of work into it, but it just feels less than compared to the rest. Something about it always felt a bit emptier, and because of that, I kind of got sick of the song really quickly, which is why this is another song that I tend to skip also. If I'm listening to the entire album in order, like, I won't skip it, just because unlike Pretty Little Birds, like, I will always skip that song. I'm sorry, I don't like it. But Prom, it's cute, you know, it's a very nice song, like, if you want to get ready to or something, to have in the background, not really paying attention to it. Like, I don't mind it. The one thing that I do like is how it fades out, because you don't really hear that a lot anymore, like, whether it be on the radio or just, you know, people doing it, they don't really do that. And I think matches this song really well, because it is very simple. And so it feels like this song, like, if I'm gonna get deep with this song, having it fade out like that and then having the rest of the song just feel very simple makes it feel like it's something that's playing in the back of her mind on loop, you know? Then after that, I have Doves in the Wind, and I have a lot to say about the song. So this one comes right after Love Galore, and Love Galore, you know, it's a very delicate and soft, like, pretty girl type of song, and I can't tell you how magical it is hearing Doves in the Wind right after the outro of Love Galore, because it switches up so quick into this grittier song with a heavier bass, and that transition of, like, how it immediately, like, grabs your attention. It is my favorite thing on this whole album. Just that transition alone, I'll just have it playing on repeat before I actually listening to the song, because it is that good. Another thing about the song, like, I was kind of young when I first heard the album. Like I said, I just started high school, and before that I was kind of sheltered, you know. The only thing I listened to was like 21 Pilots and whatever was on the radio. and so I wasn't really exposed to a lot. And then I heard this song, and it was it was very, I didn't know that you could say stuff like that in music. So then when I first heard this song, it kind of like opened my world, because I think I was always kind of scared for whatever reason. Getting comfortable with this song, it took me some time getting used to it, just because I'm not used to lyrics like this. But then I heard it, and it's just so, that beat is so addicting to me. Like, hearing her sing Doves in the Wind at the end feels like such a prize to me. I love hearing her vocals over this really heavy beat, like the juxtaposition, the contrast, if you will. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites, just because I kind of starved myself. I pulled myself away from the song for whatever reason, and I can actually appreciate it. I think watching that music video too, it was one of the funnest times I had, like, watching a music video, just because, like, you can tell that they had fun doing it. And then some comments were like, oh, you can tell that they were really friends, like they go way back. And, you know, I love seeing when artists have so much fun creating their work and stuff. It just makes the whole experience listening to their stuff so much better when you know that they like what they're doing. In 10th place, I put Wavy. And, you know, everyone's saying that they want a longer version, and I agree too. You know, it's a really good song, but it's too short. As soon as I get into it, the song is already over. And I think a lot of it is like just how it ends. It feels like a commercial to me. And then somewhere on her Genius page for this song, it said that she was working on a full version for it. I don't know if that's true, because that comment was made like 3 years ago, and I know she's probably working on new music. So the next song I put is The Weeknd, the icon, the legend. This is probably their first introduction to SZA, and I don't know if it's because it's been played so much over and over, but I think I can feel myself start to get sick of this song. Like, that chorus, I'll never get tired of, just because, you know, it's like ingrained in my head, you know, Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, and like, that will never get old to me, just singing that. But I think the song as a whole, I'm getting tired of. Like, I love the bits and pieces of it, but then because I've just been so oversaturated with this song, I'm starting to not dislike it, but, you know, like, just get tired of it. And now I'm moving on to the other songs. They seem more like stronger in terms of time. Like, over time they'll only get better, but something about The Weeknd, after a while, like, I can't really redeem it, if that makes sense. What I do like about the song, because I know I just kept talking about how tiring it is, but what I do love about it is how carefree it feels. Like, the last 5 songs, SZA was singing about her insecurities, but now she just doesn't care, and I love that. Though I don't know if it's like a toxic thing, because you could also see it from the POV of a woman who, like, stays with someone she knows is cheating on her and is treating like garbage, or you could probably see it as her being the one using him. And if that's the case, then good for her, you know. Also, really random, I kind of want to hear a choir do a cover, or having a choir do background vocals. How powerful the song is, I think it just needs a choir to, like, even elevate it even further. There kind of is that already, but it's like super subtle that you miss it. Like, it's not, I don't know if it's actual human voices or if it's just synths made to sound like human voices, but I feel like, yeah, just adding a choir would just make it so much more powerful. Even if it is in the bottom half, it's still a top tier song, you know. Like, of all the songs that I've ever listened to, this is definitely at the top there somewhere. But no matter how low it's ranked, it will always have a special place in my heart, just because it is, like, partly my introduction on SZA's music, and it kind of shaped the way that it kind of shaped my music taste. In 8th place, I put Supermodel. Throughout the song, you can feel her anger as she's singing to her ex, and it's overlaid this really beautiful beat. It's just 3 alternating chords. It's so simple, so that allows you to focus on the words, but then, like, you know, you can also enjoy the instrumentals. And then this incredibly relatable chorus comes, and she starts singing about her insecurities. And I think the line that really hit me was, wish I was comfortable just with myself, because it basically describes, like, the majority of the population looking for validation from other people, even if we aren't consciously doing it. You know, like, when you're getting ready, when you're dressing up, you're, like, making sure your hair looks good. And of course, like, not everyone's doing this, but I'm sure for a lot of people, they probably did it growing up, and they probably still do it, like, just wanting to make people see them as presentable and making sure people see them as a good person, you know. Some people don't care about that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get to, but right now, like, it's not working out. My favorite part, though, in this whole song is right before she sings the second chorus again, after the If You Believe. there's this drum roll that lets her voice, that like all the music stops, and then there's a drum roll and it lets her voice sink into the rest of the song. And I really love that, because then once the beat starts again, it makes that beat sound so much more impactful. Whenever in a song the music just stops, all you hear is the vocals, and then the beat starts again, it's just so addicting to listen to. Like, I don't know why it sounds so good hearing that, but it just does. I also 100% believe that at least 100,000 people probably cried to this song the first time they heard it, and they never stopped crying even after the album ended. And the only reason I say that is because if you actually like look at the lyrics and if you can relate to it, something about it just makes me cry. I don't know if it's just because for me it's that time, but sometimes like it'll make you tear up. It's not even necessarily that sad, but it's just the way that she's talking about her insecurities and the fact that it's so real. I both love and hate how relatable it is. Personally, it makes me cry. Not every time, sometimes it's just a fun song to sing. And then sometimes it gets deeper than that and it's like a realization like, oh man, I actually do these things. Next, I put 20 something. I remember watching her perform this live on TV. The setting, the music, it was so calming. And it's crazy that that performance was a whole year ago. I think it's the perfect song to close the album, especially along with her mom speaking at the end when she says, "That's what I think about control." And I always get goosebumps because like at the beginning she mentions control too. And then you hear this song like at the end after you've gone through this whole journey of an album, and then you hear her say, "That's what I think about control." And I think it's one of those songs, like I mentioned later on about how this album just gets more relatable with time. This album talks a lot about relationship issues and people's insecurities when they're in relationships. And obviously, as time goes on, you're probably going to get in more and more relationships. Even if you're not, you still have those insecurities. And it doesn't have to be with like romantic relationships. It could be with platonic relationships and stuff. And so after you're going through this whole journey of like her just singing about exactly what's in your head, and then it comes full circle, it's the end. I love that about this album, how it just goes in a loop like that, and then you can listen to it all over again. In 6th place, I put Broken Clocks. I think when I first heard it, I thought it would become my favorite song of all time, but like similar to The Weeknd, I really listened to the song every single day and ended up ruining it for myself. But, it only took me a couple weeks to refresh. The melodies in the chorus are gorgeous, and the 808s in the back, I think they're called 808s, or the bass line. It's so incredibly important for this song, and it's probably what makes the song so fun to listen to. The only reason I started listening to it again was because of the music video, and I just thought that music video, it was so cute. I love it. But yeah, after a while, I ended up getting tired of this song too. But then I remember, like, it just takes me a couple months to listen to it again. So in 5th place, I have Normal Girl. And this song is so fun. It's also very poppy, despite how sad the lyrics can be. But then towards the end, the tone shifts to where she realizes that there's nothing wrong with her. Even after all of that, she keeps saying how she wishes she's a normal girl. She wishes like she's the type of girl that you could take to your parents. And then towards the end, her tone shifts. And instead of her being insecure in who she is and wanting to change, she ends up saying like, "I am a normal girl, and it's you that has the problem. Like, there's nothing wrong with me, And I love that. It's also towards the end of the album, so it's like there's this character progression throughout the album if you listen to it in order. Like at first she's singing about all her insecurities, and now she's like she doesn't care anymore. And it's kind of like you get a hint of that in The Weeknd, where she doesn't care that she's with this man that's cheating on her, because she's probably the one who's using him. And so I love that when her songs become where you can tell that she becomes carefree. And I like how the song finishes on such a positive note, and like listening to the song all the way through, it just makes me feel so good. Like even if at the beginning the lyrics are kind of sad-ish, the instrumentals alone in the back, it's so fun, makes you want to dance, even as you're saying like, "Oh, I wish I was normal." In 4th place, I put Drew Barrymore. That intro always reminds me how much I love this song, because sometimes I'll look back on it and be like, yeah, it's an okay song, but I haven't heard it in a couple weeks. It always surprises me why I always forget how great the song is. This song probably feels the most relatable. Like that second verse where she starts apologizing how she's not attractive or ladylike enough. I feel like everyone's felt that at some point. And I love the fact that it's all layered vocals, because It's literally her inner thoughts, and we are inside her head. And this was the first time a song felt so personal. Like, she really poured out her soul writing this, and I love that. And I don't know if it's just me, but something about the song feels very country. Like, I don't listen to a lot of country. The most I heard was probably Taylor Swift when she was still, I don't know, like 18, I think. Like that era in her life. But yeah, this song just feels so different from anything I've ever listened to. And that's probably why I love it so much and why I'll never get tired of it. In third place, I put Love Galore. And those riffs at the chorus, they make everyone feel like they can sing. And I don't mind it, you know. Like I love when people sing that part with so much soul and energy. And it's like, even if they can't get the riff right, they just have so much fun singing it. And I love seeing that. Because it's a fun song to sing. It's so fun, like, hearing her voice do all that. And you get so invested that you don't care about anything else besides screaming the lyrics. The second part of Travis Scott's verse, when he starts with "You Like to Get Me High," that part is so fun to sing because that entire portion of the song feels so bouncy. I think the majority of the songs feel like that, like very bouncy and very fun. But then the song switches up in the last verse, and then that's when she gets way more melodic, and she sounds like a mermaid or like a siren calling out to someone, and she's doing all these melodic lines, and it's very soothing and stuff. And then the ending clip of her mother. These audio clips just really tie the whole album together, and I love it. I think this is my favorite single out of all the ones that she put out. In second place, I put Garden, and I think this is actually one of the most underrated songs. Like, everyone's always talking about the singles, like Love Galore, Weekend, but I think this one deserves more appreciation. And I'm kind of surprised that it put it so up here, like above all the other songs. But then the more I listen to it, the more I'm like, oh yeah, I understand why I put it up here, because it's just that good. And usually I have the least to say with the songs that I love the most, because I genuinely don't know exactly what makes it great, and I have a hard time explaining why I love it so much. But I guess starting with the verses, they're pretty simple, and then it goes into a smoother chorus, but then it just really opens up, you know? Like, she literally says, "Open your heart up," and as she says open, the entire music feels like, okay, so think about a circle, right? If you play Genshin, think about it like this. Like, you start, or not even Genshin, like just games in general. If you're starting a game with like a map in it, you start in this one area, right? And so this one area is probably the opening verse of the song. And then as you explore more, the rest of the area that was at first darkened, it opens up and like the entire map becomes bright and colorful. And that's how I feel about the chorus. Like, if you have headphones on, it just feels like everything is opening up in your head. And I love that when songs can make you feel things besides just having it sound good, you know? So yeah, as much as I was surprised putting this up so high, I think it really deserves it. And then first place, I put Go Gina. I think even before I decided to rank this album, in my head I always knew that Go Gina was probably gonna be my favorite. Even like the first time I heard it, I was like, I just know that this song is gonna be like a top 3 for me, because like this song makes me feel like I'm dancing in some flowy gown in the desert. Like, you know when people put their arms, like they stretch it all the way out and they look at the sky and then they just start like spinning and it's in slow motion? That's what I feel like listening to this song. Like, when you're so carefree, you don't want anyone to hold you back. Also, the second verses of all the songs on this album always feel so much more impactful, because that's usually where she switches up the melody, and it works every single time. Like, I noticed that with all her songs, the things that they have in common, it starts with a very simple beat at the beginning, and then the chorus just opens up so much compared to the rest of the song. And then a lot of times, like with the verses, she switches up so like there's more variety in the second, so it like branches off what was going on in the first. And I love that, like, it never fails. There's also like this really like minor thing in the song. There's like a little twinkle sound, and it's one of my favorite things in the song. It just makes the song feel so light and so pretty, and I love it. I love how when she's singing too, she's like speaking to someone specifically, and when I'm listening to this, like, I'm thinking about like what's going on in the song, like, oh, she's mad at an ex, oh, she's talking to her friend, she ends up like possessing me or something, and I'm like imagining myself in that exact situation as she's singing to the person. Like in Go Gina, like she's telling the girl like, your jeans are so uptight, you know? And then in my head, I'm like angry at a person, like, why aren't you letting me live my life, you know? Like, even though I can't personally relate to like a situation like that, in my head, I embody all of that. And that's exactly like I start creating these memories in my mind that I never had. I'm angry at an ex and I'm screaming at him, or like talking about how insecure I am to the guy or whatever. But yeah, that is what I think about Control. So you know how in the 2000s, movies and music videos were just so obsessed with these shiny blobs? Like in furniture or in the architecture, everything was just like, it was just blobs. I think it was called like blobitecture or something. I don't know if I made that up, but that's what this album feels like to me. Because I don't know if it's the way that the synths feel very blurry and it's just in the back, or how a lot of the beats feel very bouncy like in Gojina or Normal Girl. I think the main reason I love this album is because it will never get old for me. And I know that for a fact, because you know it's inevitable that you play an album so much that it gets boring. And for a while it happened to me with this album, so I stopped listening to it for a couple months. But then all of a sudden there was like a resurgence in 2019 or around 2020, like that time, where everyone started listening to it again because she was releasing new music. And so of course I went back to listen to it again, and it was like I was listening to the album for the first time. Another thing is that this album came out during a transitional point in a lot of people's lives, and I think I just started high school when I started listening to this, and it was just so different from the music I was used to. So it really shaped my music taste going forward. And I genuinely, like, since then I haven't really heard anything else like it. Like, it's so unique in the production and in the sound, and I think her voice is so unique. Like, people drag her for the cursive singing or whatever, but personally I love it so much. Like, it just adds so much like flavor to the song. Like, as you're singing it, you get to sing with all these different voices, the way that she emphasizes certain words, the way that she punctuates certain sounds. All in all, I think this album was an experience. It was a journey. It was beautifully produced, written, created. Like, so much love and work was put into this album, and you can tell. A lot of the songs will feel so much different in 5 years when we experience more, and we'll be able to relate to more stuff. And over time, the songs will just get more and more relatable, which is why it is such the perfect album. And for me personally, I think this one is probably my number one album for life, just because of how, I've said this a million times, but just because of how relatable every song is in some capacity, and how much more relatable it will be in the future. So that's why I love this album, because as you're changing, the album changes too with you, and I love that.